Hello, and welcome to the 8th episode of the Broadcast Club. I am your host for this episode, Nakanashi.
I am Ange Time.
And I'm Rallin a Tricolor.
Our topic for this episode is tropes and cliches in visual novels, and to talk about this with us today is community member rvnester. Welcome to the cast.
Hey guys, thank you for having me. My name is rvnester, of course, and I've been a gamer all my life, and I like story-driven games. And I've been playing visual novels for a very long time, even before I knew what visual novels are. Even back in the 90s, like I played DVD, Desire, Eve Burst Air, Sakura Wars or Tyson, and Yuno even on my good old Sega Saturn.
Damn.
Even before I knew Japanese. Of course, I played Snatcher and Police Nuts and all those kind of games. And eventually I became officially like visual novel player, and I started playing more of Chaos Head. That was something that the first thing I played, and then Ever 17, which was Ever 17 was like crack for me. Ever since I can't stop playing visual novels, and that's mostly what I play today. You know, I do play other games, but visual novels are my thing. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I hear a lot of people say that kind of thing about Ever 17 because that was one of those early ones that a lot of people could first be exposed to the ends with, and you just don't see anything quite like that back then. So yeah, it seems like it was a really popular starting point for a lot of people who've been doing this for a while.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, we're really happy to have you on here. Oh, did you have something else to say?
No, I just wanted to say that I've always been an open-minded gamer. So, like a lot of people hate stories in games, and I think that if a game can tell a good story, that's much better than something that it has no story,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Anyway, thanks for joining us today. We're really excited to have you.
Thank you.
So to get us started here today, tropes and cliches in visual novels. There are a lot of them that pop up very frequently in most visual novels that you read. And, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Who's to say? Let's talk a little bit about some of these ones that pop up incredibly frequently to get us started.
Tsundere,
do we start with the elephant in the room? Like,
Which elephant?
Do you want to start with the elephant in the room?
High school? Like, it's the obvious, right?
Oh, well, yeah.
I was just wondering what the hell is he talking about?
It's so big you guys have completely forgotten that it's a thing, right?
Which elephant in the room?
Yeah.
I'm seeing about
That's also
7
fair.
right
Yeah,
now.
exactly.
And
Yeah, it's completely transparent. I don't notice it anymore. It's like
Yeah, right.
Better
yeah,
for
that's
worse.
I'm just kind of like, oh yeah, it's just in a high school setting. That's just what we do in this.
Yeah.
But is it like does it have to be that way?
Like, no matter the scope, whether you're saving the world or just like falling in love with a girl, it's probably gonna be set in high school.
Yeah, even stories that don't exactly begin as in high school. Eventually, you go back to the high school, like Ayakashibito.
It's gonna come up sometime, yeah.
The main character there wanted to, he wanted to experience high school, and so a big chunk of the story was in high school, and that's kind of was annoying to me a little bit.
Even stuff like Karano Shoujo, where the teacher or the detective is posing as a teacher at a high school. It's like, okay, this is like, guys, you would escape.
We successfully had an adult protagonist, and where's the setting? In high school.
Don't let that dissuade you. Karano Shoujo is a very good visual novel, but there are definitely segments set in a high school because the detective is masquerading as a teacher for.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, it's just a plot convenience because there needed to be stuff in high school, obviously.
Yeah,
Obviously. But it seems like a lot of that high school stuff seems to stem from Japanese, I guess, 2D fictional culture. Like a lot of anime, manga, and I guess visual novels. They just for some reason there's this whole Japanese prospect that high school is like the best part of your life or something. Because after,
I mean, I was hearing that in America the entire time I was in high school. It's like, these are the best years of your life. And I was like, were they though? I'm pretty sure looking back they weren't.
Like, were they though?
No, they weren't. If you were my high school years are not the best years of my life. Let's just say it like that.
Yeah. Sorry, I kind of cut you off there, Ange.
oh yeah, but I was just gonna continue on. So, but well, I guess for whatever reason, yeah, high school there is just like a place for, I guess, for people can like starting to develop like themselves like as a person, or like that's where they like go through like either the hardest times of their lives, or
That's
like
where they build their harems.
yeah,
Exactly.
obviously.
Well, yeah, high school people are of that age where they're going through puberty and all
Yeah,
that stuff.
it's gonna
So
be good.
emotions are running high, and so you can kind of convincingly have people who are a little crazy.
It's also
Yeah, a little
So
bit.
you can
It's
have
also-
a pretty
yeah. No, you say. I was just going to say that it's also like for Japanese, it's a sort of a transitional period where you
Mhm.
grow up and become adult, and because then you either go to college or find a job and become part of a society, and that's it. Your dreams are crushed.
It's a very blunt way to put it, but
Prepare to become a wage slave. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so but it is kind of a strange that they almost don't move from high school. Like, yeah, I understand moeges and karages, maybe there's something like that, but once you like start even chuny games where you have battles and all that, you have high school. There's
Yeah.
that element. Fate
Yeah,
Stay
it's
Night,
it's
the series.
inescapable. Yeah.
Okay, so what's next?
Well,
after
I
high
think
school,
you
yeah.
you kind of started on Arvester of like tsundere, like the classic character archetypes, right? You've got your set of girls that they all fall into one stereotype that defines their personality perfectly. The tsundere, the dere kudere, all of those
Yeah.
the
kind of
crazy hyper
classic
girl.
types.
Yeah.
All of
The-
those blank dead A's, yeah.
X-dere.
My problem with tsundere is the way sometimes they handle it, because we all know typical tsundere. She hates him, but she really loves him. All kinds of stuff. But there is
Not necessarily, but yeah.
yeah, but there's sometimes they do it really well. Like the a character might be she might be a tsundere, but she also has a really good personality. Like as a person, she's a good person. Like, so one example I have is Ren from Fate Stay Night. People call her tsundere, but I'm not sure why exactly. But because she's not exactly, in a love-hate relationship with the main character. Like, she's a very independent person. She's very likable. As a person, she's really nice, really good, a really good person. Like not someone like annoying and calls baka her friends or something.
And blast people to the moon.
Yeah.
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 It's not like it's kind of the Cinderella trope has kind of morphed into those very like set actions, calling someone baka all the time and
Satirizing.
physically
Physical
being
violence,
physically
yeah.
violent with the protagonist, and like that's why you've got some of the like you'll see like on VNDB there's a tag for classic tsundere instead of just tsundere,
Or
because
modern tsundere.
yeah, because they're exactly there's kind of evolved into something different over time, and
So you're saying
some
that
people like that,
yeah.
which is cool.
Well, I mean, I see why it's popular. Who doesn't want to
Yeah.
think that the girl that's being a bitch to you secretly loves you deep down? Like, it's a very simple fantasy.
Yeah.
This makes me wonder how many high school tags are on VNDB.
Oh, there's probably a ton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's one thing I kind of think that is I don't know if it's a cliche, but I really don't like it when um, there's usually this kind of scene where the female character will say something that is kind of hinting at a romantic feelings or something sexual towards the male character, but the male character is totally clueless, and then the female character starts to get angry and calls him baka and ecchi and hentai and whatever other words. And
Yeah.
it feels like a really try hard from the writer to make it like a comedic scene, and it just falls flat. Like IO, for example,
Yeah.
has that kind of scene, and a few other
So,
visual novels I
yeah.
know have that scene, and
Oh yeah.
it's something that I don't like how it's done. You know, it's not
Mhm.
funny at all.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
it's one of those things. It's like once you have those character archetypes. There's also like the scenes that you gotta have for that archetype as well, and that's one of them. Like if you
Yes.
have that kind of character, it's like, oh well, that means we have to have this scene somewhere because the audience is expecting it, for better or for worse.
Yeah, it's like a
something.
a shonen training arc, like you know.
Gotta have one. Also, for reference, number of visual novels tagged as high school 1,958. So
Oh boy.
Yeah.
that's a decent number, just a few.
That's not bad.
Yeah, it's not a
Actually.
lot.
1,000 some out of like what 20,000 some that are on VNDB. That's not bad.
Well, bunch
But
of
they're
them.
probably not all properly tagged.
Yeah, and a lot of them are pretty nuki gay-ish, and that
Well,
could be anything.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's true.
Well, if we're gonna talk about Nukuge, you know, those have a lot of cliches.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
they
I have a note in my list that just says every fucking H scene is the same ever.
Yeah, yeah.
that's debatable.
Yeah, I mean, well, you got a lot of overlap in those scenes. You know.
I mean, there's
a
only
reason that,
there's only so few times you can show penetration, you know, so it's not like a, you know,
It's
so
true.
yeah.
Well, it's fun. I saw some people complaining actually about. I mean, well, you see it a lot. I see people a lot complaining about H scenes in VNs, and there's like a. They feel always like unless it's something that's specifically aimed at something a little outside the box, they always have to have like certain scenes in a moege. Like they have to have like the vanilla basic one and like
Well, yeah.
a couple other ones, and it's like that fills up like 3 or 4 already, which is kind of normal amount for a moege. And then, but there's not hardly any deviation from that. So when people say a lot of times it's like, well, if you've read one H scene, you've read them all. It's kind of true.
It's like a paint by numbers kind of thing, right?
It's all little things that are different.
About H scenes, I don't really care about them. I don't know why people make such a huge deal
Yay.
about them. Like I'll just hold the control key and I just skip those, and because
Man.
because because
Sorry, I'm stuck with these two all
Yeah.
the time. We have very different opinions on the
Okay.
matter.
Basically what I'm trying to say is that if I want porn, I will find porn, right? I just want a good story, and that's what I'm playing it. And like people make such a huge deal about it. Just close your eyes and skip the scenes. This is why I don't mind playing a BL game, for example, because I just close my eyes and
Mhm.
and hope I don't miss anything important.
Make the bad thing go away.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's
Yeah. Well, you can just put your hand over the screen, over the image, so you can still read the text box, and you can realize when it changes.
yeah, but
That way.
sometimes
So you don't-
the
you
text
don't
box
get to
is
see
transparent,
that's-
and
You get a little
That's
surprise
true.
when you open your
Well,
eyes.
That's a very
That's why
serious risk.
you turn the opacity up so that nothing kind of pokes through the text box. You're good to go.
Poking through.
But I don't wanna
Good job,
read
Ange.
gay H scenes, so
Yeah.
it's not like And the thing is that sometimes, like for instance, with Subahibi, where I don't know, can I skip the H scene? Should I leave it? Maybe there's some kind of a clue or foreshadowing for something else. That's
Mm-hmm.
I hate when they do that, because when I see an H scene, I want to skip it. I don't care about it.
Yeah. That's something a lot of people will talk about in when they're starting something that's an 18 plus title. It's like, so do the H scenes matter or not? Because occasionally they do. A lot of times they are absolutely filler for people who want to, but a lot of times, not a lot of times, but sometimes there is something in those H scenes that you might want to catch.
Oh man, yeah, I was surprised by that in F, for example. I was like, wait,
Uh-huh.
there's like actual like kind of quality content in
Yeah.
here. This is interesting.
Yeah, like I read several months ago now. Wow, it's been a long time now. I read Harukuru, which starts off with 15 H scenes that really don't matter. And everyone who's read that is like, you can totally skip like almost all of them. There's like a couple that you should probably read because there's something in there, but almost all of it is just not necessary. There was on the RVN's Discord, there was a lot of talk about number 14 in the 15 that come in the prologue. And so that was one that they're like, you should at least read this one because
didn't you feel like the writer is trolling you? Like, you want an H scene? Here's 15. Get away.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. It was like start up and it's like third scene, one of the heroines just strips stark naked in the classroom. And you're like, oh, that's how this is gonna be.
I would just feel dirty by the time I got through all those.
Yeah, I remember she's in a classroom. She screams orgy or something like that.
It was an interesting experience to read. I actually it's really good once it gets off the ground. But the fact that it starts with the harem ending basically is very interesting.
Yeah, unfortunately, I stopped it right after the H scene stopped and the real story started.
That's where it gets good. Actually, that's a lie. Yeah. The first ending is kind of but then it gets really good.
No, it's not like I dropped the end and just stopped it.
You just kind of stalled out. Yeah. Well, I understand.
Let's see. I also have a note here for the protagonist who wants nothing more than to preserve his everyday life.
Let me guess what VN you're talking about.
Oh no!
Well, no, I mean, there's a specific one that inspired it because again, we'll get into this a little bit later. I think when I talk about some other like concepts of tropes. But I would say it's still not uncommon. There's a lot of characters whose whole thing is just like, I just want to stay like this forever. Which of course is the lead-in for how the things change in their life after that, right?
Every time I'm reading something or I'm watching an anime or anything, and I get to the line where the protagonist is like, or anybody is just like, man, I wish these days would go on forever. I'm just like, well, shit's going down, because that's generally how it goes.
But yeah, D.A.C. Irae has a very interesting take on that, I think, which was nice. But it's certainly a common enough trope in its own right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And D.A.C. Irae uses it very interestingly as part of, let's say, main character's development. I don't want to kind of spoil it, but I'll tell you in private what I mean exactly. So
yeah,
it's a really
DS is still kind of out there for a lot of people, and we don't want to ruin that for anyone.
It turns out in a fighting visual novel where people basically crystallize their core beliefs and use them to fight, you can do some very interesting things with character developments as people battle with their philosophies quite literally.
Beliefs or desires, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
And the thing about what I love about D.A.C. Irae is that it embraces all these cliches and all the tropes, because I'm honestly so tired from all these works, that try to subvert something and try to be clever with, deconstructions and all the stuff like that, because D.A.C. Irae is something that is just tries to make a really fun story. That's That's why I love it so much.
It's like, you call this a trope, I'm going to be the best at this trope you could ever possibly want me to be, while also taking a step back from the trope and looking at why we even used it in the first place. And I'm like, that's good. Tropes aren't inherently a bad thing. There's a reason they're popular and they make the test of time, but you can still use them and do interesting things with them without trying to go that edgy deconstruction route that you mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of, it becomes really deconstruction itself becomes a cliche now.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, it does.
It's such an overused word on the internet.
I would love it if we are actually on the way out of the golden age of deconstruction, because it seems like so many things. I don't see it. Because I haven't read as many new VNs, but in anime, you see tons of things that are deconstructions. It's like, can we stop?
Yeah.
Can we do something else? I get it. It's cool. It's cool to subvert expectations, but
I have a quick question as someone who has not read D.A.C. Irae yet, and I know I'm a bad person for not reading it yet.
That's fine. I still love you,
okay.
What is an example of without major spoilers, that you were saying, it just takes a trope or cliche, and apparently just goes crazy with it and even steps back and examines why. Like, do you have an example?
For example, I think this is one of the previews they. So this is, I would say, not a spoiler. One of the previews they put on the Kickstarter, I think. I know a Twitter chain about this, where they quoted a line from the visual novel, which is a character talking about the events of the VN as a story and the people he has cast in it. Where he has just kind of taken the idea of, like, who has the role of the protagonist, and, then basically kind of what they do there is, one, obviously, they have this guy who is the archetypical protagonist. He's the most protagonist you've ever protagonisted, almost as much as hero protagonist from Snow Crash. But then they also, what they do with that is, because the character is talking about his role in the context of the story, they also are able to do things examining what does it mean to be a protagonist, what sort of things are attached to that, how does that actually interact with the story and the other characters and the people around them, which ends up being a very interesting experience, while still being a good story about the sort of protagonist who exists as the shape that all anime protagonists have been crafted from.
So who's narrating? Is it just like a third person narrator? Or is it somebody?
This is a character in the VN is the one saying this. Is this quote?
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. But again, that's kind of what makes it interesting, is that there are people who exist there that are they're a little weird in that they kind of talk about the story as though it were a story, which is, different, right? And it kind of lets them, like, kind of pick apart, like, what actually goes into making a story.
No,
right.
It's like an epic German opera, like...
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, quite literally in this case.
Yeah, actually.
Okay, that makes sense.
I should really get on reading that. I've been...
Yeah, it's actually, like genuinely very good.
I just remembered another something like, it's not exactly cliche, but something that they do in visual novels sometimes. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they add a true route when there is no real need. The only reason is that they force you to go through all other routes when the story is not really built for that.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that does that. Like, we had a chat about true routes along several episodes back, and there's a lot of things that deserve to do that, like the way that they're set up. I mean, not deserve to do that, but it's appropriate too, because you have everything else set up. But then sometimes it's just like, no, we're gonna do all this stuff, and then you have to do this one last just because we said so.
Yeah. We like this heroine the most.
like visual novels, like for example, Ever 17 and IO, they build from the ground up for that kind of storytelling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ever 17, it was appropriate to do that kind of thing, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, something like God, I can't try to think of an example.
I've got MajiKoi. I don't feel like MajiKoi's true route needed to go at the end after you finish everything. I think you could have read that at any point during the MajiKoi experience. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, it's a character.
I actually did read it in the middle. I went, I did 4 routes, and the agave route was unlocked, and then I read the agave route.
Wait, can you do the agave route early? I just thought it was always you were supposed to do it last.
You only need to finish 4 of the main 5 heroines to unlock it.
I mean, 4 of the main 5 heroines is still most of them.
I did all of them, and then read the agave route, and then finally read Chris's route.
See,
and
I don't blame you, but my strategy was Chris's route first to get it out of the way.
See, I didn't know that I should do that.
To be fair, I was just like, oh, Chris seems interesting, so I picked her route first. I was like, oh no, I've made a mistake. Oh no, what have I done?
Yeah.
See, now I feel bad that I haven't read MajiKoi yet. Oh my god, I have so much to read.
It's okay.
Depends if it's for you. It's one of those, if it's just for you kind of thing. Like, it's pure 100% comedy.
I love comedy. Comedy is one of my things that attract me to certain visual novels. So if it makes me laugh, that's better, because it's one of the reasons I liked Grisaia, and I mean I didn't finish it, but the comedy was pretty nice, I thought, and made me laugh.
I've seen a lot of people say about Grisaia and Nakajitsu that the common route is the best part.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. That's. I think at least my issue with the common route was that it felt like a bunch of semi-unrelated comedic moments strung together without really doing much. Like, yeah, each one of these is like funny in isolation, but they're not doing a whole lot. And there's definitely some stuff going on there that it's like, oh no, I see why they did that. But a lot of it was just kind of like,
well, it was entertaining, I thought, going through it. But at the same time, you're just like, was this necessary for the whole?
well, I mean, if you're writing a comedy, then maybe yes. Yeah. But I think there's just that's kind of they were going for something different. And then, the routes are actually very focused, but like the common route, you just kind of meander for about 20 hours, have a few laughs, like, okay, serious time now. Let's put on our big boy pants and do the heroin routes.
Exactly. And the thing is that I thought that Grisaia, the no Kajitsu, was pretty well written, and the stuff that are good already very long, and then I felt like they stretching it out even more for no reason. And that's kind of one of my kind of pet peeves with certain visual novels where they stretch
that's a trope
things
too,
out.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm leading to.
Over long scripts,
because some visual novels take such a long time to even begin. Like you need to read hours and hours before the main story starts, and I don't know why visual novels get a pass in that, because books don't get a pass in that.
You're really... I'm restraining myself right now because of the visual level. I'm not going to mention it, but you... Naked, you know what I'm thinking of right now, right?
Fata Morgana?
No. Little Busters.
Yeah, I figured.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god, Little Busters. It was torture. After playing...
Validation!
After playing Lucia's, I mean, it's just my personal opinion, right? If someone loves the VN, I know a lot of people who love Rewrite and all that.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. I mostly just give people shit, but
I felt like the common route was not funny for me, except for that song that he made for his best friend. That was excellent.
Yeah, the Yoshino song.
Oh, yeah, the Rewrite stuff.
One of the best things ever.
Oh yeah, we should.
Rewrite was not as bad as Little Busters, but yeah, Rewrite had its moments too.
It was pretty darn long.
Rewrite had one of those moments. I was getting towards the end of the Rewrite common round. I was like, are we still going? Are we done yet? And then once it did, it got into routes. Then it was.
Yeah, I think they did a better job in Rewrite in particular of like interspersing some story bits into the common route, which made it a little more bearable to me. Which is, I think, why like Rewrite I was like, okay, I can keep going at least because I've got that next little plot nugget's gonna be coming soon, right? Whereas Little Busters was just like, please, like, can I just find a gun somewhere or something? Like, let's just.
But Rana, don't you want to play the baseball minigame for the 5th time?
No, I turned off the baseball minigame, man. I turned off all the
fucking
minigames.
Come on, you gotta play the baseball minigame, man.
But isn't Rewrite a story game, a story visual novel, while Little Busters is much more like Karage, or...
Yeah, but the difference is that Little Busters actually has a true route that is like a story-heavy true route. It's that it takes like 40 hours to get there. Mm-hmm. And the payoff is like, okay, yeah, maybe if you had cut the length of Little Busters in like half, and you had made the character routes not like just obnoxious and made the common route significantly shorter, then yes, the true route of Little Busters is actually quite good and a very engaging story that is... It's story heavy and focused on that one thing, but the amount of content that the true route is gated behind is just like the most absurd amount of padding.
Yeah, I think that was a case when we were brought up where like the true route is kind of disconnected from the other. God, I don't want to spoil, but basically the other heroine routes don't really matter that much in the true route. It's kind of just, oh well. Those other heroines, meh, here's this good story. But you have to wait till the end to see it, so...
Yeah.
So that's basically what I was talking about. Like, they have a true route, and you have to go, through all those other, complex route system that usually key games have before you actually get to the main story, to the true route. And it's kind of, I don't know, it makes me kind of hate certain... visual novels,
it's something I was gonna mention when you were talking about how a lot of VNs really meander for a while before really doing anything. It's been really interesting hanging out with some people who are working on writing VNs in English. Is that a lot of them are going for really efficient writing, so that you don't have all of this meandering and pacing woes that we see in a lot of the stuff that's getting translated. Because there's kind of, I think there's a perception in the industry in Japan that it needs to be a certain length to be satisfying to the audience. Or I know the writers get paid by the word. I think they get paid by script length.
Yes.
In the industry in Japan, and that feels like kind of an odd decision to make, because it encourages bloating your script with stuff when maybe you don't necessarily need that scene with everyone together in a restaurant eating dinner and antics happen. Like, we don't need that.
Or
that doesn't do anything for the story.
But isn't it kind of obvious that you shouldn't do that? I mean, if an author writes a book and the book has those kind of filler scenes, right? The editor will say, these scenes are, ruining the pacing, and you should either remove them or make them much more punch the text a little bit. And that's what kind of I don't understand. Why do visual novel writers get a pass at that? It's
I think the argument is that having these scenes allows you to experience, the everyday life of these characters.
Exactly.
It lets you get a closer bond to
there
them
is
by
a
spending
set of
time
people
with them.
those type
that enjoys slice of life, right? Like, they do exist. They're out there,
Exactly.
man. They're out there.
Hi.
Yeah, of course. There's nothing bad with slice of life. Like, slice of life visual novels are not for me. I don't like anime slice of life, right? But there is a way to do it much more interesting and entertaining, and there is a way to do it very boring, at least from my perspective. And a lot of visual novels do it in the most boring way they can, right? It's like, I think, like, in the mind of the visual novel author, what happens is that, okay, we need to develop the characters here, right? So what do? Just put them in some restaurant and eating, some, I don't know, something, and talk about stuff that have nothing to do with the story. And they think this is character development, right?
Yeah, let's take these characters and put them in a situation and just let them go.
Yeah.
And see what happens.
Like,
that doesn't resonate with some people.
Like, one more example is like the Muv-Luv series, the original trilogy. You have this long extra, and then you have this long unlimited, and then after that you get to the alternative, right? And all this kind of by the time you get to alternative, basically you're already too tired from the story, right? That's how I felt, and
some people do, but
a
not
lot of people love it.
The only thing keeping me going was knowing that alternative was supposed to be good. I was like, okay, I just have to get through this much stuff, and then I can finally start reading the good stuff. And I don't think that VN should have to do that.
Exactly, because but that's the problem, whenever I don't want to like read a visual novel and say, like what happened to me when I read Rewrite, when I felt, okay, it's gonna get good, next route is going to get good, next route, and this just it never works. It never goes for for things like that. I think that the writer of Muv-Luv just he keeps all the cards to his chest until the end, instead of spreading them out a little bit, so that to hook you up for a good story. And what Muv-Luv tried to do, like, is telling the story, like the extra is the first arc, the unlimited is the second arc of the story, and then the third arc is the alternative. It does an excellent job with that, but it takes for so freaking long that it's not fun anymore. That's what I believe about it.
I know a few people who got pretty frustrated with that, and while they eventually finished it, they just didn't like the fact that they were basically quote unquote forced to read something that was bad, I guess, or cliche writing, and didn't really go anywhere. But then all of a sudden you get the sudden genre change, and stuff started to happen. It was a good story, but like they just didn't like the fact that you had to go through stuff like that. But when they could have cut it down to at least half, like the part before Alternative, at least half of what it was.
Oh man, I'd like to take a moment actually just to briefly here Shill Suba Hibi, which is great because the first chapter is kind of like slice of life moege stuff, but it's only like 2 or 3 hours out of like a 25-30 hour VN, and that is like if you're gonna include that level of stuff, just like make it nice and short so we can get through it and move on to the stuff that's like actually good.
All right, so we talked a bit there about the tropes that pop up a lot in VNs, but we got some visual novels that don't really rely on those quite so much, and those ones kind of stand out in a way because they're so different. We did want to kind of give a nod to some of those titles here while we're on the topic. So I know probably what Ralina wants to talk about is...
I don't know what you're talking about. I've got nothing to say on this topic.
Are you sure?
I only read trope-infested visual novels.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll mention it then. The House of Fata Morgana actually is pretty is pretty good at avoiding a lot of the common tropes that we see, which is I think is one of the reasons that a lot of people end up liking it a lot in a way because it is very unique in the visual novel catalog that we have right now because it's just so different from the norm.
But if it's different, does it mean it has a lot of tropes? I mean, it should have less tropes, does it?
It has less of the common visual novel tropes,
Yeah.
like the high school and the protagonist who wants to preserve everything, and the tsundere. Like it obviously has tropes because everything has tropes in it. It's just that
Yeah.
it strays. Like when we say like fewer tropes, I think we generally mean like fewer
High school
visual novel / anime tropes, right? Like it strays
Yeah,
away
yeah.
from the common trappings of the medium, right?
Mm-hmm. It's not like when you think of a visual novel, like we were just talking about earlier. It's like, oh yes, well it's going to be set in high school, and you're going to pick out of 4 to 6 heroines that you want to date, and they're going to be these archetypes, and that's kind of you can assume that about a lot of things, and that is absolutely not Fata Morgana, at all. That would be, yeah, that's not even close.
So what kind of tropes does Fata Morgana touches on?
Oh man, that's a. I mean, I can't. It's just there's. I mean, obviously, like I said, they obviously exist. It's just a lot of these are. Again, I have this trouble describing Fata Morgana because a lot of the things I would like to talk about are just general spoilers, and it's very hard to really get into what's going on there without really being like spoiler territory. Which is why I try not to. I mean, the obvious one, which is not a spoiler at all, which is the amnesiac protagonist, which is another classic trope, right? The main character at the very beginning of Fata Morgana wakes up, no memories. This is a trope in lots of stuff, but again,
Yeah.
it's just.
Isn't it more of a JRPG
Yeah,
trope?
kind of JRPG trope, right? But I guess the point is like it's not full of like anime tropes, right? In the same way that something like a Little Busters or a key visual novel. I was gonna start listing something. Wait, all of the ones that popped into my head
Yeah,
immediately were
actually-
key VNs.
Key visual novels in general are kind of really good indicators. Like if you want to think like, oh, what are common VN tropes? Like look at what Key does in
Yeah.
most of their
They're
things,
kind of
and that will show you
exemplary
pretty
VNs.
well. I mean, well to be fair, I mean, though talking about Key, Planetarian, for example, doesn't have many of those common tropes that we were just talking about either.
Yeah.
So they're not perfectly indicative, but their large works are.
Mm-hmm.
I remember reading Planetarium, but I don't remember what it was about. So it was about a girl who, some guy in post-apocalyptic world comes into this planetarium, meets this robot girl. That's all I remember. And
Yeah, that's basically all you need to know about going into Planetarian, and then
Yeah,
that it's a key VN, and you should expect what you'd expect from a key VN.
yeah,
As far as
expect
plot
to cry your
trajectory.
eyes out and at the ending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's what they built their brand on, so that's a fairly good expectation.
Although I
Safe
have to admit,
expectation.
it was my first key visual novel, and I hated it, so I didn't like it. Okay, so are we on Fata Morgana still?
I think I was gonna move on to the next one. The list I was gonna give is sort of a collection rather. Excuse me. like Ryukushiyo 7 visual novels. I mean, Higurashi obviously has some because it's a little more like it's set kind of in a school and focused around that. But
Yeah.
Umineko tends to have a few, and then Rose Gun's Days is just like totally doing its own thing over there.
Yeah. Wow. Why did I
Yeah,
not even think
like
about
Rose Gun's Days
Days
is
for
just
that?
like, again, it has its own set of tropes, but they're all like 50s like jazz, like all like old style tropes, like right. It's very different kind of set of themes.
It's kind of the thing is instead of borrowing the standard Vienna and anime tropes, they're borrowing the standard tropes from an entirely different not necessarily entirely different medium, but entirely in different
genre, basically.
Genre,
yeah.
yeah.
I haven't read this visual novel yet. I mean, I have it, but like I said, my list, my backlog is too big.
Oh, the backlogs are insane. Sometimes there's so many things to read, and
admittedly, I haven't finished it either. But there's a nice physical copy staring down at me from one of my shelves right now.
How much RGD did you read, Alana?
I did not get very far because I had some technical issues with the VN.
That's right.
Yeah, it was.
You haven't
I was reading on auto at the time because I couldn't use a mouse due to an injury, and the auto function in that game was just. I had a not legitimate copy at the time, though I now have a legitimate copy. The auto function would randomly crash, and then I would have to start from my last save, and that is a no-go.
Yeah. That doesn't work. Yeah. You should read it. It's good, and like I said, it's very unique.
It's definitely on my I need to read this. So
I really wish that Manga Gamer would release Umineko with the voices from the PS3 version. These are amazing.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. But it's like a crazy licensing thing that it's like almost impossible for them to license it because Alchemist just died.
It's a shame.
I wonder who actually has the rights to those voices right now, because someone's gotta have them.
Yeah,
but I think they're just essentially unobtainable.
Aren't usually voice rights are copyrighted by the recording studio themselves, not the game developers?
It's really I actually really want to look into how voice work works over in Japan, because it's a totally crazy thing with licensing and everything.
But the Umineko PS3 voices are just amazing.
So good.
Yeah.
It really adds a ton to the story.
I only played like 2 chapters so far, and I let every single voice line
absolutely
it's amazing. It's so good. It's almost like you're listening to like a radio drama or something. It's amazing.
Well, it's the stuff that they do in that Ryukushiyo 7 does with sound just in general. Like, there's a reason that he called his releases sound novels, not visual novels or whatever.
He calls them sound novels?
He calls them sound novels.
He does.
Oh, okay.
Because of the work he does with I mean, obviously the original releases didn't have
voice acting,
didn't have voices, because they were Dojin releases and the money. But the re-releases do obviously, but it's just the sound work in general with the music and sound effects is really well done, and with the addition of voices, absolutely, like listening to them all the way through adds an entirely another layer to it, where I know a lot of people will skip voices partway through because you read faster than they can say the lines.
It depends for me
most of the time.
For me, it depends. I think the only visual novels where I let almost every line play to the end was Diasire, Umineko, and Fate Stay Night. Fate Stay Night, amazing, like really manly voices, like professional.
Some of those have some things in common. It's like, I would listen to Junichi Suabe like monologue at me for a very long period of time, and Diasire and Fate Stay Night has that in spades.
Don't MajiKoi has a lot of really excellent voices as well?
Oh, MajiKoi is insane. I swear, every big name
Wakamoto
has
and
voiced somebody in MajiKoi. It's nuts. because they just have so many
Yuko
characters.
Goto.
They just like keep getting people to
Yeah.
voice.
I don't know where their budget
stuff.
comes
It's
from,
nuts.
but it's somewhere.
right?
And it's
Some
working.
sort of magical black hole they're pulling their budget out of to hire these voice actors.
Yeah, and their original visual novel, which I think was the one where there's Butler or something like the.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but there was one
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
like the only one they did. So I'm like, I don't think that was it that popular? I don't know. Someone must have like got money from their savings or
Money
something.
came from
There were some
somewhere,
dark
yeah.
back alley deals set up
Yeah,
there.
I
but
don't
from
know.
what I understand, the same team who did MajiKoi also did another series for Candysoft. The name of the series is Tsuyokis, and it had like it's not exactly like MajiKoi, but it had that similar kind of style where you have a comedy and slice of life and stuff like that. And it also had some famous voice actors like Wakamoto and with his growly voice and stuff like that. So they probably had connections.
Yeah. Any other
I mean,
VNs
I
that-
can keep going. This is my jam, right? I'm in my
Yeah, you got-
wheelhouse right now.
Let's keep going.
got one more here, and then
Yeah,
we'll,
Sekien no Inganak. I don't know much about the rest of the What a Blank series. I can say that Gakthun definitely has a lot of VN tropes because for whatever reason they decided to just set Gakthun in a high school. However, Inganak is nothing at all like that. And again, Sakurai as a writer has kind of her own set of tropes with the repetitive text and the way she describes like the things going on and the fights that she kind of brings to the table. But again, you get very far away from again outside of Gakthun where there's a literal high school and like romance shenanigans. You get into a sort of very unique presentation style and a very unique setting that gets pretty far away from the traditional VN trappings of the genre again.
I keep hearing like her visual novels usually have a really interesting presentation style.
Oh yeah, it was nice too because I mean Gakthun I have some complaints about, but Sakurai has a very interesting style of presentation and the way she writes. Like her prose is very flowery and repetitive and does all these sort of strange things. But then Gakthun in particular was translated by I believe Koztiel, and that guy is a fucking legend. After I was super impressed by how good the Grisaia translation was. But the Gakthun translation is also quite excellent, which really helped. Because again, it's a very difficult to preserve style, but I was like, I could tell, like I was reading, the Gakthun originally, and then I went through Inganak, and then Inganak was just a fan translation, but I was like, I can see that the Kozmik managed to replicate the style that she's using here, like, perfectly, which is really cool, because, like I said, very distinctive style.
So he should retranslate the Aisiri, right? He should make a...
Well,
Okay.
Oh, God.
Well, yeah, I agree with you about that because I've never actually played this series, but it has such a I don't know kind of magical almost feel to it.
Yeah. When you
ever
follow, an illegal doctor walking around healing people in like some crazy bizarre city with animal people and like, borderline magic
almost like
stuff. Like it's
almost like a fairy tale.
exactly. That is exactly. Hey, it's really funny you mentioned that because there are literally like references to fairy tales in Inganak, which is
Yeah.
they definitely get at that.
They also made, I know there's a visual novel they made called Forest, and this is just the way that they present the story is just like crazy. You have 2-3 characters talking on top of each other, and there is text everywhere, and even the choices, I couldn't understand how choices work because one time I was playing the game. One choice got me to one scenario, and then the same choice got me to another scenario, and it just was very, very confusing. And because of that, I never finished the game.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a beautiful kind of a game if you're in the mood for that, right? It's not for everyone.
Yeah. Cool. Well, since we've been chatting for a while here, so let's even though we could keep going on this for a while, I'm sure. But
Oh, yeah.
Let's try to keep our time down a little bit. Let's move on to news that's happened since last time. Probably one of the big things that a lot of people are looking forward to that I'm sure Ralina is thrilled about.
I have
is
nothing
that
to say. I'm just gonna sit here quietly and be well behaved.
That the Little Busters English edition is coming out, hopefully on November 1st. we experienced a couple delays with that. I think over the course of it, I haven't been watching it super closely, but pretty sure that there were a couple bumps in the road there. But right now we're talking November 1st, which should be pretty exciting for a lot of people. I think, have we all already read that?
Not me, but I am.
Okay, yeah,
I'm looking forward for it. At least I want to at least give it a chance, right? So.
Yeah. I'll pick it up because I obviously, I mean, it's a translation of the Perfect Edition, which has the scenes that were added in the X edition minus the H scenes because nobody wants to read that.
And the three routes of the other three heroines that
those three routes got added in, and they did some editing to some of the other routes. Which, if you listen to the show last episode, just talked a little bit about that, the changes that they're making on that, and so it'll be pretty good for some people. I'll check it out eventually.
It means that they're making a long VN even longer before you get to the true route.
To be fair, the new I will begrudgingly admit the new heroines they have routes for are like better characters. So two of them at least.
The Saya's route is one of the best things that Maida Jun has ever written, in his opinion. So
yeah, I've heard that. Also, there was at least one other character who was like, actually, she should have had a route in Little Busters, and I was like, man, why did all these garbage girls get a route and she didn't? And the answer is she doesn't get one. Just in the the extended version.
Yeah. Cool. So yeah, there's that. Something else that's coming out that I have mixed feelings on this one.
Me too.
The Steins Gate Elite.
Yeah.
They just need to stop, man. They just need to stop. Yes.
Have you guys seen the YouTube video of gameplay?
Oh yeah.
Oh no.
It looks like
awful.
school days.
They have just taken scenes from the anime and added a text box over it. Yeah. You've created one of the best, most highly regarded visual novels of all time. Like, rest on your laurels and just, like, let it sit. Don't be like, oh, I bet if we improve it. Like, no, you're not going to improve it. Steins Gate is a fluke, and everything else this guy has written is fucking garbage. And, like, just leave it alone already.
That was one of the things that really bothered me about the fact when I saw that they were taking animated scenes from the anime and punching them into the VN like that, is that I really liked the character that the artwork had in the VN itself.
The artist, I have his design art book. It is gorgeous. I really like the style. It's very unique and adds a distinct like Steins Gate feel to it. But now they're just like, nah, man, let's get that white fox in here.
Yeah, I never liked the way the anime looked, and I don't know. It just it's just the colors look all wrong, and it's just flat. And
that's the thing. It's just flat compared to the VN.
Yeah,
like I say, the VN feels like it has so much character to me, and the anime is just kind of like anime.
Yeah, and didn't they also said that they are expanding on the story? Like, how are they going to?
Stop!
Please, no.
I heard that as well. I don't know any details, but like seriously, dude, just stop. Like Steins Gate is really fucking good. It's really fucking good. You don't they put out Steins Gate 0. I'm like, oh, they put out more Steins Gate, but it's like kind of weird like side story thing. Maybe listen. Oh no. Oh no, you just like please don't. Just stop it. Just let it be. We don't need this. No one needed this.
Are all science adventure games written by the same person or different?
I believe that. So from what I'm aware of, it's the Chaos Head Steins. To be fair, I still hold to this day that Steins Gate was written by an intern who is now sitting at the bottom of Tokyo Bay with cinder block shoes because they produced the one good thing in that series and then were quietly disappeared. But from what I'm aware, it's the same guy behind Steins Gate, Chaos Head, and Robotics Notes. I've heard that the things in Chaos Child that this guy is involved in are the worst parts of Chaos Child, but he is not the main guy behind Chaos Child, and that's why it's supposed to be good.
That's a great transition to talking about Chaos Child, which is supposed to be coming out very soon.
Yeah.
Actually, by the time that we have this episode published, it should be released in Europe. And
by the time this is published, it will be in my hands. I will be playing Chaos Child.
There you go. Yeah, it's October 13th. Was the release date for it in Europe, and it's coming out in North America on October 24th. Which now that I have that out of the way, if you had something more you wanted to say about Chaos Child,
Oh no!
please.
I mean, other than that, I've heard it's supposed to be good. Like people are like, yeah, this
Yeah.
is actually good. So I keep trying all the things this company makes, and I keep being burned because they just for whatever reason I refuse to learn. It's like no, this time it's gonna be good again. I say as I pick up Steins Gate Zero and Occultic 9 and now Chaos Child. I'm like, no, this time it's gonna happen.
So let Chaos Child be your final.
Actually,
They're
Chaos
gonna
Head,
find the
final
magic again.
chance.
yeah, actually, Chaos Head is my favorite game in Science Adventure League series, so I'm very excited about Chaos Child. And I kind of want to play what's that? Anonymous Code and what was this? Occultic 9. I saw the anime. I kind of like the anime, so I want to see how the game turns out.
Cool. Well, moving on from that, we, as a lot of people are probably aware, Muv-Luv Alternative finally came out on Steam not all too long ago, which is very exciting for a lot of people to finally get to read that. The Director's Cut patch is not out yet, but in my humble opinion, it's not necessary.
Yeah, agreed.
Yep.
What's the director's cut patch?
It adds
What does
it adds the porn.
That's the.
Ah, okay.
It is very unnecessary. You really don't need it.
Yeah, it's not really. There's
Okay.
yeah, it would add something, but not enough to be worth waiting for. It's the same thing like a lot of people said, don't wait for the 18 plus version of DS Irae to come out, just read it now.
Exactly. The amount of stuff that the 18 plus version of DS Irae will add does not make up for the time you have lost from waiting, from experiencing this very, very good visual novel. Like, you should all just read it right fucking now.
It's the same story with the DS series. People still waiting for the 18 plus patch.
Yeah, I
Oh
know.
yeah, absolutely. And there's just some people that it's and I mean that's fine. Like I'm not gonna tell them they're wrong. I'll think it's kind of silly, but they'll wait for it. They're like, well, I want to read the full version with all the content. Da 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 da. I was like, it doesn't add anything.
There's definitely a set of games where like if the extra content is actually not worth the wait, and
Yeah.
Muv-Luv Alternative is one of those. DS Irae is one of those.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys know if Muv-Luv Alternative is the original PC version or a console port? Because from what I understand, the console was censored a little bit because there is one particular scene.
I don't think they censored that particular scene.
Okay.
It's like
I believe it is. I was told it was its original version.
Okay.
it'd be it's the best of both worlds.
I haven't checked yet. I don't think it's a direct port like of the console version. It's kind of a hybrid, brand new thing
Yeah, it's the
with
best of
things
both
from the
worlds.
original and kind of some of the upgraded things from the console port and all that. I haven't read it yet. I'm gonna do a reread someday.
Well,
maybe.
that's what I expect them to do.
Yeah, and exactly. That's
It's a
what I would
new
expect them
version
to
of
do.
the engine and stuff like that.
And there's no issue where people on Windows 10 have that
Oh,
issue
yeah.
where it gets
I
stuck
should
in
hope
constant
not.
report.
Yeah,
That was awful.
that's one of the best things about the Muv-Luv series for people, because you could obtain the original Muv-Luv from when it released, and it just does not run well.
That is
on...
how I found r/visual novels. Was like I was reading Muv-Luv. I was like, fuck, I cannot for the life of me get past the scene. The game keeps crashing.
Yeah.
So I went in and asked for a save file, and someone hooked me up. And then I paid it forward a couple of times and re-gave out that save file to people having the same problem as me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's awesome. That's one of the wonderful things about the wave of official releases of stuff that's already had fan translations we've seen, is that they're so much easier to run now. And Muv-Luv is like probably the biggest one that I've seen that is really benefiting from that. And that's pretty cool. So moving on from Muv-Luv, a little something happened a couple weeks ago. I don't know, maybe you guys have heard about it, Doki Doki Literature Club.
I
I've
actually
heard
heard about it today, and I hear it's
Oh,
a good-
really?
yeah, it's a good visual novel. I
I've
don't know about-
convinced two other people to read it, one of whom I got to read it while I was sitting on voice chat with them the entire time.
Oh, that would be
that was a great
yeah.
experience.
So I think you and I, Ryan, are the only ones who have read it right now. It's been taking our visual novels by storm on Reddit. I don't know if it's taking other visual novel communities by storm, but there was a whole lot of buzz about it when it came out.
What kind of visual novel is
it's-
it? Like, what kind of story?
How to say?
Don't.
Yeah,
It's-
don't.
It's short. Just it's like a couple of hours. Just read it. It's real interesting.
Yeah, the
Okay.
best thing I can say is it's about 3 to 4 hours long on average. If you got 3 to 4 hours that you're not sure what to do with, check it out.
Yeah, it's totally free and like it's a very nice experience. Don't look anything up about it. Don't read anything about it. Just go play it and experience it for yourself. It's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Moving on from there, we've got a couple other things about upcoming releases. The Sakura Sakura Kickstarter has been funded. It's being... I don't know how well that did. I didn't look at that.
It just barely passed like a few days before it was going to end. So, and then, you know, the people that were following were
how it goes
happy.
sometimes. Yeah. That's one that I don't actually know anything about. That
Yeah,
one
neither do I.
myself.
I saw Sakura on the title. I was like, wait a minute, you're not. I'm like, I don't think this
You know,
is that, but at the
There
same
were
time,
a lot of people that are like, hey Nakanashi, are you going to read Sakura to Sakura? I was like, do I have to? It's not.
excuse me,
actually,
it
Wayne
is
Cloud
a
release.
romantic comedy about two overbearing Sakuras and their lighthearted love triangle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
That's
see.
right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. I did read a synopsis about that.
When you name your VN with two same words, you are officially out of ideas. You know, like Sakura Sakura.
I mean, I get why they
not
did it
even
if
Sakura
like
in time or something like that.
if the
you know,
if the
Sakura
both
and-
heroines are named Sakura, like I get it. On the other hand, you've chosen a poor branding. You've chosen a very poor branding.
Well, yeah, there you go. So other exciting news. Umineka Churu is in testing, which means someday soon, hopefully, it's going to hit Steam. Finally, I know there's a lot of people waiting for that one.
It's been like a couple years since the original came on Steam, right?
How long? Do you remember, Ralna, when it was?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when it hit Steam. I think it's been
a while.
around a year.
According
wanna
to
say it's been around
according to
a
Steam,
year.
it's July 2016, so about
Okay,
almost
yeah,
a little over a year now.
A little more than a year, yeah. So that's exciting. A lot of people. I know there's not only people who have been waiting to read it because they finished the first half, and they've been waiting for the second, but also people who have been waiting to start the entire thing until both parts are out, so they don't have to wait. Which is, it's just exciting.
Yep, very exciting.
Sort of in the same vein, I guess. I don't actually know. Danganronpa V3 has been released. I've been seeing a lot of people talking about that in the last... It's been about a week now for the record time. Since it came out, I've seen a lot of kind of buzz about that and a lot of people being like, no, don't say anything. I have to read it. So
I've been avoiding like so many parts of the internet just so I don't.
Yeah.
'Cause people are probably memeing or whatever about random scenes, and I don't want to see this right now.
Just like with the third game in a Zero Escape series, I hear people are disappointed a little bit by the ending.
That's what I've heard.
But-
I've heard really mixed things.
Yeah,
Really mixed opinions.
I'm going very
about the
slowly
ending.
through it right now, and
Me too.
very very slowly. Like
Yeah.
but
I'm still in chapter 2, in the chapter 2 trial.
I barely did half of first chapter. Very
Oh, wow.
very.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Well, a lot of people are really excited about that, so that's great. Last thing on recently released titles, we've got Koiga Saku Koro Sakura Doki, or Saku Saku, which is I think it's just a moege, right?
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. That I've heard. I was talking to somebody I heard about it actually a while back, before I even was really aware of, or maybe it was when it was first mentioned that it was going to get a TL. Someone was talking about it on Discord and said generally good things about it. It sounds like maybe the TL quality has been a little shaky from what I've seen. People saying about it. But I'm not sure. I haven't actually looked at any screens or anything from it.
Yeah, you need it there.
Yeah, but that's kind of the... People are excited to have it, but maybe it could have used some more time. I don't know. Like I said, I can't back that up. Those are just the opinions I've seen other people.
The irony, it got delayed a lot for no one knows why, and that kind of apparent. If TL is apparently that bad, or I guess mediocre, kind of sucks. But
it's not bad or anything. I don't think. I think it's just rough.
Okay,
is what it sounded like. But last thing on my news list, pretty cool. The NDB is now over 10 years old. Been around for a while now, and a lot of people using it, which is great.
It's been my main source for a lot of visual novels. Finding it, it's an.
If I want to know anything, I go to.
I can't imagine a life without it. Honestly,
Check.
like having joined after well after it was like a mature platform.
Yeah, but the thing is that I'm blocked from Irae Gamescape, whatever the name of the site.
Yeah. Most people are. There's a thing with EGS where after you can access it from a foreign IP, but after a couple months, your IP ends up being blocked. Just because it's just how it goes, I guess. You can ask to be unblocked, I guess, by the guy that runs it, but I don't know how you got to do that. But yeah, most people in foreign countries can't access Irae Gamescape after a certain length of time. So I haven't gone there yet, so I think my IP is still safe. Once I actually start going to EGS, I'll be counting the days until it disappears from my... Anyway, that just about wraps up what we have for news. So before we go on our way today, we of course have our moment for a community member to Shill a VN. And so for that, we have today OJ191 to talk about one of his favorites.
Hello to all my fellow Broadcast Club listeners. I'm OJ191, here today from Down Under to shill for you a rather unusual choice of visual novel, Sunrider. Sunrider is an original English-language visual novel trilogy in the space opera genre, the primary defining characteristic of which is a heftier focus on dramatic space battles and political tension. Now, a heads up, and this is likely to cause some controversial opinions, but Sunrider is a gameplay visual novel. It features tactical turn-based action where you control the main mothership, the Sunrider, and its riders or support mecha against enemy units on a hex grid-based map. This is also backed by a strategic system of purchasing upgrades for your weapons and riders using credits earned for defeating enemies and winning battles or completing requests. The story itself, of course, is told completely in the visual novel format. It's not going to win Visual Novel of the Year or anything, but it's pretty nice for an OELVN release in such a small genre. The first two parts of the trilogy do not have any voice acting except for some English battle voices, which are quite limited. However, the final part actually has complete Japanese voice acting for all of the main cast, which is quite nice, although it's kind of strange for an OELVN. Now, moving on, H content. Sunrider does have some lewd and even 18 plus content. This 18 plus content can be acquired by either directly purchasing the 18 plus version or on Steam by applying the optional 18 plus patch. Now, I think that covers just about everything, so to finish up, Sunrider is, as previously mentioned, in 3 parts. However, the first 2 parts are actually bundled as one, called Mask of Arcadius, which can be acquired for free on Steam or the Sunrider VN website. The third part, Liberation Day, is unfortunately paid, but if you enjoyed the first 2 parts, it is very much worth it, and a large improvement in both story and gameplay. Overall, it has been a very enjoyable experience for me, and I would highly recommend that you at the very least try Mask of Arcadius for free. Anyway, thank you all for listening to my shill, and I hope you've all been enjoying this episode of the Broadcast Club. This is OJ191, signing off.
And thank you, OJ. We don't generally get to hear a whole lot about Sunrider, so that was a nice change of events for us. We'd also like to thank rvnester for taking time out of his day to join us.
So I want to thank you very much, guys, for having me. You've been amazing. It's an amazing podcast. And, I don't want to go, but I guess I have to. So thank you very much. Amazing podcast.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. It was a lot of fun talking with you today. on and off recording. We've had a lot of fun chatting today. So anyway, thank you everyone for listening today. Be sure to tune in for our next episode when we finally talk about adult content in visual novels. That topic has been a long time coming. We've been talking about it for a while, and we think it's finally time to sit down and talk about it. So make sure to tune in for that one. Should be interesting. Anyway, thank you for listening. As always, I've been Nakanashi.
I am Ange Time.
And I've been Rowling a Tricolor.
And we'll see you next time.